Have you ever wondered what makes you, well, you? Is it your DNA, the code you were born with? Or is it everything you've ever experienced? It's one of the biggest, oldest questions out there, and we're going to unpack it right now, the classic debate of nature versus nurture. So, here's our game plan. We're going to start by laying out the two main arguments. Then we'll get into some really powerful, kind of shocking real-world evidence. From there, we'll explore how our very sense of self gets built, give biology a chance to make its case, and then we'll try to land on some kind of verdict. Ready? Let's go. All right, first things first. Let's set the stage and get a really clear picture of the two opposing ideas at the heart of this whole thing. Okay, before we jump into the debate itself, we've got to wrap our heads around this key term, socialization. Basically, it's everything we learn from the day we're born. The language, the rules, what's polite, what's not, all the stuff that lets us fit in and function. You could say it's the process of society teaching us how to be human.
And this slide, it lays out the two sides perfectly. On one hand, you've got Team Nature. They argue we come pre-installed with instincts, like our basic drives for survival. It's our biological hardware. Then you've got Team Nurture, who say, nope, our behavior is the software, and it's installed through that process of socialization we just talked about. We learn it all from our culture.
Now, what's the best way to test an idea like this? Well, you look at the extremes. Let's explore what happens in these incredibly rare and tragic cases where nurture is almost completely missing. We're talking about so-called feral children. This right here, it's a quote about a girl named Jeannie. She was discovered back in 1970 after being locked away in almost total isolation for 13 years. She hadn't been socialized. No one had taught her to speak or even how to walk properly. It's a really chilling look at what a human life is like without any nurture. So, what does a heartbreaking story like Jeannie's really teach us? Well, think about it. If walking and talking were pure instinct, part of our biological hardware, they should have just appeared, right? Regardless of her terrible environment. But they didn't. This is a huge piece of evidence suggesting that these super basic human skills have to be learned. They are not automatic. Okay, so if learning from other people is that important, just how deep does it go? Is it only about learning skills like walking and talking? Or does it actually shape our identity, our very sense of who we are? A sociologist named George Herbert Mead had this brilliant idea. He said our self is actually two parts in conversation. First, there's the I. That's your impulsive gut reaction. The part of you that wants to burst out laughing in a dead silent room. That's the I. But then there's the me. That's your social self. It's the little voice in your head that goes, maybe not. People will stare. The me is constantly checking the social rulebook and editing what the I wants to do. And then another sociologist, Irving Goffman, took this a step further. He said, you know what? All of social life is basically a performance. We're all actors on a stage. We have our own lines, that's our personal identity, but we also have to follow the script of whatever social role we're playing. And the whole point of the performance is impression management, trying to get the audience, everyone around us, to see us the way we want to be seen. But hold on a second, are we really just blank slates? Are we only actors performing a script that society wrote for us? Let's flip the coin and give nature a chance to talk. Let's see how our biology might actually provide a pretty powerful blueprint for our social lives. This is where a cool concept called biogrammars comes in. It's an idea from sociobiology, and it's kind of a middle ground. It suggests that, yeah, our genes don't rigidly control our behavior, but they do strongly influence it. It's like we have this biological programming from our evolutionary past that kind of pushes us in certain directions, like maybe towards forming families or working together in groups. Now, a really famous sociologist, Talcott Parsons, took this idea and applied it straight to the family. He argued that society works best when our social roles line up with these biogrammars. He suggested that women are biologically predisposed to what he called the expressive role, nurturing, caring, while men are better suited for the instrumental role, providing, working. Now look, this is a very classic theory and it is heavily debated today, but it's a perfect example of how the nature argument has been used to explain why some social structures last for so long. Okay, so we've heard some really compelling arguments from both sides of the aisle. The case for nurture seems pretty strong, but then, again, you can't just ignore biology. So where does that leave us? Who's right? Well, here's the thing. The modern way of looking at this is that the word versus is just plain wrong. This isn't a battle. It's not a competition. It's a dialogue, a constant back and forth between our genes and our environment. Your genes might nudge you in a certain direction, but it's your experiences, your world, that decides if, how, and when those nudges ever turn into anything real. They're totally tangled up together. And that leaves us with one last big, kind of mind-bending question to think about. If our life is a performance, and our character is shaped by both our biological wiring and the social scripts we've been handed, who are you when the curtain falls? When the audience goes home and there's no one left to perform for? What's left? Who is the real you? Something to chew on.